my first career break. I didn't think I'd be a career breaker. And I think for women, that's always like a bit of a fear, right? If you take a career break and you decide to go back into the workforce, what is your value, right, to employers and in the market?
Hey everyone, before we begin this next episode of the Hello Mentor podcast, I just want to say if you're job searching or hiring, check out hiredly.com. We are not just another job platform. We make it easier to find the jobs that people actually want, and we help companies stand out to hire the right talent. So there's a lot of smart tech and there's a lot of human touch. That's Hiredly. So you can head to hiredly.com and give it a go. Thanks for joining us today, Malisse.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I've known you for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
A long time. And one of the things I've always been meaning to sort of ask you in person, which we never really got this conversation, even on the personal level, was how that your journey with cancer, right? How that was. Because I remembered because we're connected on social media. I remember the first time I saw you post a write about it, I was so surprised. And I couldn't even imagine what you must have felt during that time. And how you were so willing to share that journey so publicly with your friends, right? So I just really wanted to hear what was that moment like when you were first diagnosed with it, and then how did that news sort of impact you personally?
Yeah. So it's been 7 years since I was diagnosed. And it was sort of in between careers at that time. So I had quit my cushy corporate job. That's actually when we first met.
Right.
I first used you back in the day when you used to be WOB.
Yes.
And I drank the Kool-Aid, went into the startup world. And so I was actually dabbling in my second startup at the time. This is in 2016. And then I found out I was pregnant. So after I quit my job, went into a startup and found out I was pregnant. And that was sort of a surprise at that time, although my husband and I were planning for a baby. And during that year of 2016, I was trying to build that startup. When it got to January of 2017, just right after I gave birth, my daughter was about 2 months old. That's when I was diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma. How I found out was, with women, we go through that recovery period, right? The 30 days postpartum, the confinement period and everything. Your hormones are working overtime. And so I think what happened was that it accelerated the growth of the tumors in my body. So the doctor did say I probably had it while I was pregnant. We're not so sure how long I would have had it prior to that.
Right.
But when you're pregnant, your body produces natural steroids that protect the baby. So that's why I probably didn't notice any growth. But then postpartum, it grew suddenly so big a week after I gave birth, and it didn't hurt. I just had this really big lump on my neck. So I went and saw my gynecologist and I asked her, what is this? And she prescribed me some antibiotics for 2 weeks and said if it doesn't go away, then I need to go and see a specialist. So did the antibiotics. I think she knew. So after the 2 weeks on meds and it didn't go away, she immediately said to me to a hematologist, which at the time I've never even heard of what a hematologist is. It's a doctor that specializes in blood. And so I went straight to him, and he knew. Like, the minute he saw me, he kind of knew. So what I learned is that if you have lumps on the right side of your body where your lymph nodes are, so that's usually like your neck, your underarms, your groin, your ankle areas, and it doesn't go away and it doesn't hurt, that's usually a sign of something. So if you have lumps on the left side for the lymph nodes, that's usually a sign of bacterial infection, and they usually will go away. So these are things that we generally don't know about. So it's just good that we're aware of.
Right.
But to be obviously absolutely sure, I was ordered to do a biopsy 2 days after seeing this hematologist, and then 1 week later I was diagnosed. And I was still in postpartum recovery, and there was just so much going on with the startup and with being a new mother. I remembered I usually try to be quite a pragmatic person, and I tried to take the news like a champion, but I think by the time I got to the car, I was with my husband, and we just couldn't hold it in, and we both kind of cried together. And sort of during the weeks after that, I allowed myself to grieve, and, feel the emotions that come with it. But at the same time, I think me and my personality, I also wanted to make some quick decisions on what we should do next, right? Not just me, but also as a family, because this will impact my family. So yeah, that's kind of what happened. And at the same time, the startup that I was mentioning, um, second startup, I would say falling forward instead of failing forward. And I decided to actually not continue with that startup that year. And actually, a big reason of that was because I didn't have the right co-founders. So for those who are going into entrepreneurship, finding the right co-founders, if you decide to have co-founders, is really important. And I decided to cut my losses short after a year of trying to build the business and really just focus on my health and family as
Of
well.
course, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, so you were sort of like you had like a actual baby, a real baby.
A real baby.
And you had a startup business also like a
Another
baby,
yes.
and then you have to deal with this news.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And so you decide to focus on your health and what was that? So you do you take like a break for a while to go through treatment?
Yeah, I mean, my first career break. I didn't think I'd be a career breaker. And I think for women, that's always like a bit of a fear, right? If you take a career break and you decide to go back into the workforce, what is your value, right, to employers and in the market? And it's interesting because, well, so I also sit on the board of advisors for Lean in Malaysia. So we do a lot of advocacy work in the space of women empowerment and building women in their careers. And in the past, working with women on career breaks, I've always been on the other side and having these conversations with women who, have found struggles as they go for career breaks and then trying to re-enter the workforce. But now that I was in the boat, now I really understood, both the mental and the emotional, sometimes biases or unconscious biases that we put on ourselves, the pressures that we put on ourselves. So I was feeling that there was that fear. I mean, I decided I had to take that break. But there's always that fear. I mean, I'm the kind of person that I could not work. And, me and my husband, it's very important to us that we're both working parents and we lead by example for our children. So, but yeah, it was a fear like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a break. How long is this gonna be for? It ended up being about a year and about 15 months in total because I was itchy and I couldn't wait to go back to work. So yeah, I decided to go through chemo, made that decision after approaching several hematologists in KL, and made a decision where to do my treatment. And yeah, went through 6 months of chemo, probably another 4 months of post chemo recovery, and then decided I was really good to go back to work.
Wow. And at the point you decided to go back to work, were you sort of clear of the cancer?
So, once you have completed chemo, you have to go to the hospital quite often, to do blood checks with the doctors, those sorts of things like routine checks. So for the first 2 to 3 years, I was going it was monthly, I think, at first, and then it ended up being quarterly. And by year 5, it became every 6 months. So bi-yearly. Once you've done the 5th year, then only you could really call yourself cancer-free because they want to monitor for any signs of potential relapse.
All right.
So my doctor, he was amazing. He would joke. I mean, we all have cancer cells in us, right? I think it's a matter of if it gets triggered. But he would joke, Malisse, at your age, and I was 31 at the time, if you had to choose a cancer, this would be the one to choose because of my age, my biology, the kind of cancer and the stage that it was at. So thankfully, it didn't get to stage 3 where it would spread to the organs. There is a higher chance of curability in the 90th percentile if I took the chemo approach, which is why I decided that. So in a way, before the session, we're talking about blessings, right? And always trying to find the silver lining. So for me, it was more the timing of which I had my pregnancy actually helped me to identify the cancer faster because my cancer was non-aggressive, slow growth. So if it was slow growing and I'd say I didn't have a baby that accelerated the growth of the tumor during postpartum, I might not have noticed until it was maybe too late. So in a way, it was challenging having to deal with a lot of different elements in my life as a mom and my career, my work. But the timing was right.
Right.
If I had to see it that way. So I was able to approach it and deal with it in the right way.
In some sense, your health saved you.
Exactly. And then that's the story. And I do tell her that. And now, 7 years, I can't call myself cancer free. So I only go for one annual checkup, which you kind of have to do for the rest of your life, I think. But that's, it's like your routine checkup that you get every year anyway.
Wow. Wow. I'm so fascinated at like how, obviously such big news and it's life threatening and all that, right? And at that point in time, you would still have considerations of, like, how about my work, How about the career?
Yeah, no, I do. I am a very career-oriented person. And obviously at that time, I didn't know what I was going to do next. I didn't think so much about that. But I think, when I got to a point where the treatment was successful, then I started to think what I wanted to do next. And I spent like a good sort of 4 to 5 months
Right.
identifying that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And in that say, I suppose so in that first year to a year and a half, that was the most challenging time, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're not just going to, yeah, it's not just yourself, it's how it impacts your family. As then my child, my parents. And it's a weird time in my life. I didn't see people as often, and I'm generally someone who's an extrovert. I'm so used to seeing people. So where I could, I tried to be live life as normally as possible. With my husbands, we try to do things with routine, like supermarket shopping and all those things. But the caveat is, and this prepared me for COVID, because your immune system is so low and you have a high chance of picking up infection. You want to try your best to not get sick when you're on chemo. So I would have to mask up. I'd have to go, like, if I wanted to go to the supermarket or go to the movies, I have to pick times that are least crowded. So like we pick the first earliest movie time on a weekday, or we go at 9 a.m. to the supermarket so that there's less people around me, and wash my hands when I get home, like all those sorts of practices. I'm gonna say prepared or the work the code practices. So yeah, I had to practice that for about 6 months. But it's not just the physical challenge that you go through as your body is going through chemo and recovering from that. It's really the mental and the emotional strength that you need to have during that time.
Right. Because I can't imagine how you would feel because you don't actually know yet how you're going to respond to the treatment.
No.
Right? And you're probably always kind of, I'm not sure the right word is, like always slightly anxious, right?
Absolutely. Especially, the first few weeks, yes, the doctors tell you, but I think when you're experiencing it, it's totally different. So what I tried to do to, um, I think, manage how I was thinking and feeling around the situation was starting to journal what I was experiencing, more on a physical one at first. And so I would start to write after every treatment, any side effects I would feel. And, so I would experience things like nausea, certain pains or whatever it is. And as I started to journal that after 2 treatments, I started to realize that there was a little bit of a pattern. So I would know how many days I would be extremely fatigued, not feeling so well, etc. So then my husband or my family were able to jump in. So by day 4, I'm usually starting to get back to normal. And then the following week after that, I'm normal. Tired, yes, but still manageable. So it's always the first 3 days that I would need, or we would need, a little bit more support, especially with the baby at home. We didn't have a helper to start with. So it was really my husband taking on the baby. And yeah, at times I'm just not able to tend to the baby. So yeah, so journaling kind of helped me be a little bit more aware of what was going on, and so I can manage things a little bit more at home.
Right,
Yeah.
right. No, I know what you mean. Right? I always find that writing helps at least unload your mind a little bit or see things a little bit clearer.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes it goes back and forth, but it goes in a spiral. So once you put it on a piece of paper, you're like, okay, like you can organize your thoughts a bit better.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, is organizing it. Because I think whatever it is, whether you're going through sickness or life, career, whatever it is, it's just so many voices in our heads all the time.
Yeah.
It's cutting through that noise, and I think writing it down physically helps to, like you said, right, organize it and give you more clarity.
Right.
Or invalidate certain things. Like you might realize that, hey, actually, you're seeing a pattern that maybe isn't healthy or negative, and something to pick out.
Right, right. Did you how much you think like a good support system helped you through this moment? Because at the same time, I can't imagine if anyone would really know how you really felt, like like as someone who's experiencing it directly, right?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have learned lessons from my experience. So, yes, it's important to have an ecosystem around you, but I think for every cancer fighter, it's different in what their needs may be. It really is it would usually aligned with your own personality. So, for some people, they prefer to um, recuse themselves, I think, from social situations and just really want to focus on themselves at home, and that's fine. And for me, because I'm more of an extrovert and I'm so used to social connections, and interaction, so I felt that I that would help me to get through that journey. So what I thought I did well during that time of building this ecosystem, of course, I had my husband, I had my parents around. Um, and I came out about it in social media because I decided that I didn't want to be explaining myself to every person I saw. If I saw during the sort of the next 6 months, I thought I'd come out in social media about it, but also in hopes that I might build connections with others that may be going through that. And that's actually what happened, where I had a lot of people that I didn't even know. Um, reach out to me, whether they're going through it or a loved one is going through it or had gone through it. And they came in as sort of another layer of support, just with pure strangers. But it was a beautiful thing to experience that, we're all human and, we still want to reach out and support, when you're going through difficult times. So that was really nice to experience in sort of these invisible kind strangers through your social media. So that I thought that's what went really well. I think in a way it helped me to not hide behind this. I felt that if I, again, it's akin to my personality. If I didn't speak about it and I hid behind it, I think it would have been harder for me to, I think, acknowledge it and be able to take it on head on. But what I think I could have done better is I didn't vocalize enough where and when I needed help. So again, my personality, I'm very type A. And it's like, no, I can do it myself. Right? No, I can handle it myself, whether it's physically, mentally, and emotionally. So I perhaps didn't share or vocalize, if I was going through a really hard time or really dark thoughts,
Right.
or just needed someone to call. I didn't reach out to friends. I think if anything, I had that expectation where people would reach out to me, like my close circle of friends would reach out to me. But with people who have loved ones going through it or friends going through it, you also, like you said, you don't know how to respond to that situation. So you probably set back, right? So again, I think what could have been done better from my aspect is I should have asked for help, had better communication and said like, hey, friend, it'll be great if you can visit me or, come visit me in the hospital. I totally don't mind you visiting me in the hospital while I'm having chemo, because it's quite a lonely journey when you're sitting there for 5-6 hours.
Right.
And so they know how to have that relationship with you as you're going through that. So that's something that I learned and I felt could have been a bit better because I felt lonely at times.
Right.
Mm.
Didn't know how to express yourself.
Didn't know how to express myself because again, in social media, everyone's seeing like, wow, Malisse is really taking this like a champion, right? But what they don't see is like the really hard, shitty days that everyone's going through. Yeah. So those are the moments that perhaps I didn't record and showcase as much.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I sort of have the reverse question now. So if you do have a loved one who's going through a challenging time like this,
Yeah.
and and they're, and as extroverted as you are, even you didn't fully express what you needed, right? So
Oh, yeah.
so if you do have a loved one who's going through this, what do you think you can do if they're not really saying anything of what they expect of you, right?
Yeah, I mean, we always know the saying that assumptions make an ass out of you. Assuming makes an ass out of you and me, right? So, um, don't assume. I think that it's important to at least reach out and ask that person, hey, how can I support you?
How can I support you, right?
Yeah, just ask that. How can I support you? And it could be, yeah, talking, right? Maybe they need someone to reach out and talk to them. But support could be in other forms. It doesn't have to be verbal. It could also be just, I don't want to talk. That person that's going through, an illness might say, I don't want to talk so much, but I would just love your physical presence so I don't feel so alone. Just sit with me in the hospital or just sit with me at home. Or it'd be really great if maybe, Fridays you can help me bring some food or coordinate with my family, things like that. You never know, right? So every individual who's going through an illness, I mean, it's not just cancer. I think any other illnesses out there, um, if you ask them
Right.
what their needs are or how we can support them, I think that would be truly helpful. And at the end of the day, even if they say that, hey, look, actually, I'm fine, I just rather just be with myself, then you also know as well.
Right.
Mm,
Right. That's right.
yeah.
And it's interesting you mentioned that you can, it can also be something that you think is somewhat trivial, like, can you bring me some food on a Friday and stuff like that. Sometimes, maybe you could just, it's like, it doesn't cross your mind that that is what support means.
Mm,
And of course, yeah, and it's to some, I'm trying to imagine, like, because everyone's personality is very different. The main message that you probably should let the other person know is that I'm kind of here, whichever way you need me to be here to show up for you, right?
exactly.
And when you want to ask for it, I'm here, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and how has this experience sort of changed your outlook? Because it's such a,
Yeah, I know. It definitely has. I mean, there's so much going on in this world, and we always talk about, oh, another year older, right? Or another year older, another year wiser. But I talk a lot about how aging is a privilege. Not everyone gets an opportunity to age. So I also embrace aging, also through, physical elements as well. So, for us women, yes, as we grow older, we're so concerned with how we look, for example. And that's fine if it's done in a healthy way. At least this is my belief and my value. But if we get a wrinkle, yeah, it's not the end of the world. Um, and so it's also embracing that we're aging and we get a chance to live a longer life that many other people do not.
right,
Right. And
right,
there are so many people, if we think about, there's so many of our friends and people in our age group, and we're relatively young, right? In our, 30s, 40s, generally, I think whoever's listening out there, that don't even get a chance to hit 30 or 35 or 40, right? I mean, we hear so many stories post-COVID, people just randomly, having a heart attack, even though they're healthy. Or, I've had fellow friends in sort of this last 5 years who've also gone through their own cancer battle, had a relapse, and they passed, and they have children. And so, I mean, I really count my lucky stars. And so that's why I feel aging is a privilege, and I celebrate life every year that I have my birthday. Um, another thing that I've learned about myself is resilience. In my 20s, I was really focused on the hustle, making the money and building the career and everything. And that's resilience in one way, but I think this was a different kind of resilience that I experienced going through cancer and coming out of cancer. And no one is born with resilience, right? Resilience is a muscle that you flex, you exercise. The more challenges that you go through, obviously, you're going to be building that muscle, right? And I think that that 6 months really built that resilient muscle, and learned a lot about myself during that time. And actually, one of the things that I really learned about that I carry till today, and I do share a lot with people. I read this in Sheryl Sandberg's second book, Option B. Okay, I'll be honest, I didn't finish her book. I got to like maybe chapter 5, but this particular chapter really stood out to me.
right.
She talks about post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic
Growth,
right?
right? And I think now we're hearing this term like growth mindset.
Yeah.
But she talked a lot about it like years ago. We hear about PTSD, right? And the idea is, as people go through PTSD, maybe you go through counseling and whatnot, you're trying to get back to the way things were. But the reality is, when you go through something so traumatic in your life, and for everyone it's a different kind of form, um, the reality is you're not going to be the same person, or you will not go back to the state that you were before the trauma happened. So shifting that mindset into more of a growth mindset. And so she talks about post-traumatic growth and what you can learn and how do you grow from a traumatic situation. How do you bounce forward is essentially what she's talking about. And that truly spoke to me at that time. I remember it was my second month of chemo, and I read about that. And really that helped to take me through the chemo journey, because it wasn't my physical strength that helped me succeed in the chemo treatment. It was my mental strength. I would attribute it to my mental strength that helped to get me through that time and navigate through that time with my family. And yeah, having sort of this growth mindset through that really helped me to bounce forward and lead me into where I am in my life and my career right now.
I love that phrase, post-traumatic growth, right? And I feel that, in some sense, obviously, getting like cancer and stuff like it's always a bad thing. It's not no one wants it, right? But sometimes when you're going through like a big challenge like this, it's also like a window to come out of it a bit different, a bit stronger.
Absolutely. I mean, we grow and we go through different seasons in our life. And I mean, that is part of the journey of life, right? And so when something really bad happens, I see it as, okay, well, how can we grow from this? How can I learn about myself from this? And then how can I share with others in hopes that it may inspire or others may learn from that as well. So again, I feel that it's such a powerful thing when you shift your mindset and perspective on things. And that's where I've seen growth and transformation in other people when they've just making the switch is one thing, but sticking to it and living it and executing on that is actually the harder part. Yeah.
And how has this moment sort of changed your perspective to, say, entrepreneurism, risk taking, and even your career?
So I told you guys in the beginning that so I've had 2 startups before. So one was like a side hustle when I was in my corporate job, and then I thought, oh, that didn't work out. It failed forward, fall forward. So I thought the solution is that I'll quit my day job and do this full time. So I went into the second startup. I was in property tech at the time. Fell forward for its own reasons as well.
Right.
But the difference between now the third startup that I did after chemo and the first 2 startups is that it was very purpose driven. And I truly was clear on the problem I'm trying to solve. At that time, like I told you, I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm like, wow, everyone's doing it. This sounds fun, right?
Run a startup.
All right.
Right.
I want to raise money, be my own boss. I'm going to earn a lot of money, da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
You and I can attest that it's definitely not the rah-rah that we see in social media and the news and whatnot. There's so much that goes on behind that. But I feel that it shifted my decisions on how I want to build my career and how I want to spend my time.
Right.
So after chemo, I did go back to work. So actually slightly pivoted, but I went into corporate innovation. As the industry I was in, corporate innovation transformation.
Right.
So I was doing corporate innovation consulting for about 3-4 years into COVID. And sort of just before COVID hit, the itch was still there. I wanted to do another business, but actually the inspiration for that third startup wasn't because I wanted to be an entrepreneur again, but I felt that there was a problem that I wanted to solve this time. And it was triggered and also inspired by my cancer journey. And then unfortunately with COVID, my role was made redundant in my company because, business was not coming in, couldn't afford to pay. So I was made redundant. And so I thought, okay, again, right, opportunity. This is a chance for me to maybe focus on my on my startup full time rather than this being a side hustle again. So that's when COVID hit, lost my job, and then I went into my startup full time.
Right.
My third startup, which is BOBBLE. So in the space of menstrual health and well-being.
Right. And actually, I would love to pause for a moment because you said you were made redundant in that job. And the reason why I want to pause is I feel like this is, especially people in the tech industry, is a pretty challenging time. I know a lot of people who don't have a job because the companies are not doing very well.
Yeah.
Right? Well, what would you say to them to help them through this moment?
First, I can tell you, I've been through redundancy twice. So, like in my whole it's not easy. I mean, in my whole career, I've been working for I think maybe 17 years now, but I've only really worked for 3 employers.
Got it.
And 2 out of the 3 so far, I've been made redundant. So, my first job I'd left, obviously willingly, mutual terms. I went into the startup world. And then second one after chemo, I was made redundant. And actually, I went back into the workforce a couple of years ago with my first employer. So there was an opportunity. They called me and I'm like, sounded great. And I love my colleagues and the culture there. So I went back for about 9 months. Company got acquired, made redundant again.
Oh, because you got acquired.
Because I got acquired. So they wanted to cut out fringe markets. So I was handling Malaysia and Indonesia, which was technically a fringe market for them. It was an American tech company. So that's what happened. So I think in terms of facing redundancy, it was hard because at both instances I had kids to feed, right, essentially. So with the first redundancy, I had one child. With the second redundancy, I had three. So my risk it was a lot higher at that time in facing that. And yeah, it was really hard. Again, I think my process is that when I go through something that's so difficult, I allow myself to get upset and grieve. But I don't want to wallow in it for too long. Right. So everyone has a different cutoff period. So for me, I allow myself to be angry, sad, angry, sad, I'm happy, whatever it is, all the emotions came out, for a good few weeks. And that's my time frame.
Right.
But then it's like, well, I don't want to wallow in it. What am I going to do about it? Right. And again, like the redundancies weren't, it wasn't just me. Right. So so I also I'm not the victim here. Other colleagues also was going through that as well. And again, it was in no way a reflection of my value to an organization or my value as a talent or someone who's trying to build their career. So I had to remind myself that. So I think anyone who's going through that, remember that you have worth and you have value, and redundancy is not, it doesn't define, that value or your value at that time. So you can allow yourself to be angry and be upset, but then it's about, how do you move forward from this? What are your next steps? And again, it's just me. I'm quite a pragmatic person.
Right.
Respect. Yeah.
Right. Because sometimes in the example you mentioned, just now, like the company sort of merged with another business, and for some reason they don't need this department anymore. Sometimes
This is the market. The market, definitely not the role, is the market.
The
but
market, right? Yeah, so it's like it's not something that's within your control. And it's not a reflection of your value as a talent.
Absolutely not. And I don't feel that devalues you if you decide to go back into the workforce after that either. I mean, it is what it is. It's happened to so many people, so many companies. So again, I think it's just how we bounce forward from that. And I'll just also mention that pragmatism is not something I was born with. It's not a trait that I inherently had growing up. I felt it was something that I wanted to hone in my early career. And I noticed that in my early career, I can be quite passionate, but also emotional person. And I could make decisions. I tended to make decisions out of emotion sometimes. I had to step into a leadership role very, very young. And so I realized that was probably one of my areas of improvement, a weakness, or I like to call it areas of improvement that I decided I want to be better at. So I tried to adopt pragmatism a little bit more in my practice as a leader, as a manager, as an employee. And I felt that it enabled me to be a bit more fluent in problem solving when I am facing, challenging situations.
Right. Yeah. Go and if I sort of use my own words, right? Because I think you mentioned this quite interestingly. Like you kind of need to let yourself feel those emotions. After all, we're all human beings, right?
Yeah.
All right. So it's not about like suppressing like everything is great. I know I can deal with it, but you allow yourself to feel. But at the same time, like what's next? At some point, you need to decide what's next, right? In the more pragmatic way. I'm actually coming from like a different direction, because I think that I've always come from the point of view of emotions are not useful to you. We have to just go with the logic. Let's figure out what to do next. And after this entire journey of building a company, I've sort of learned the opposite actually. And I've learned that what I mean by that is, ultimately, when you work in a team and we're all people, that everyone has emotions, like including myself, right?
Yeah.
And to sort of deny that it exists actually doesn't help the team work better together. It doesn't help the company perform. It doesn't help the individual grow. And because I used to have this executive coach, and one of the things that I remember she sort of highlighted to me when I was bringing up this point, like, I felt that maybe their reaction right now is not very clear. They're still in that emotional phase, and that's just saying that, well, yeah, it's very natural, and you sort of to realize that number one, why are they working in this company? Are they working in this company purely out of logic, or do you feel there's a sense of emotion? Like are they following you, the company, because there's this emotion that's involved, right? And to deny that it exists doesn't help.
Absolutely.
Right.
I absolutely agree, because emotion, I feel like, is also part of building culture.
Yes.
And culture is such an important component to a successful company. And I don't know if it's because of our Asian culture, it's very much like, shut down on the emotions, don't make decisions in that way, or da da da. I mean, I think it's very different to the West in terms of how we communicate, how we may lead. And so I totally, hear what you're talking about, and definitely, for all the listeners out there, I'm not denying that emotions and having EQ is an important part of, building yourself in your career or leading. It's figuring out a bit of a balance on both, knowing when to turn on the pragmatism, but at the same time being an empathetic leader, and an empathetic colleague as well when the time calls for it too.
Yes, I think, and I guess everyone has their own journey in finding out what that balance is, right? Based on
hard.
and what their starting point, because everyone starts different. And how do you get to that middle point that really works, and I guess that the main thing is that, if you're just about wallowing in emotions, that doesn't help. But if you're just being, fully pragmatic, then you're sort of denying a big part of this whole human experience, and you come out in a different way eventually, right? So you still need to kind of have these two together, right, as you take things forward. And before I sort of went, off track and ask you about it. So you were saying about how you eventually started Bobble. So tell us more about like Bobble, like that, how that started, why this,
Sure. So as I was going through the chemo journey, and being a new parent, I started to be a little bit more, well, actually, no, a lot more conscious of what we're using at home. I mean, you would know, Derek, you have kids, you're thinking about choosing things that are natural and organic, right, for our kids.
Yes.
So, everything from, even because for me, when I was touching too many chemicals, if I'm washing dishes and laundry and things like that. So we tried to make that switch to be more conscious consumers at home. And opting for more natural ingredients, more organic ingredients, even packaging as well. I mean, we've always practiced the recycling culture at home, so it's really growing from that. And then I started to look into personal care for myself. So as 50% of our global population has periods, right? And so I started to think about what I was using in terms of my period care. I have, for most of my menstruating life, I've always used tampons. So this is something that we insert in our body. And in Malaysia at the time, there's only one option. Like, you just got no option. You just have to buy that one brand. And so I was actually looking for an organic alternative, that aligned with my values as a consumer at that time. There was none in Southeast Asia. And I even went so far as to, I found that in the US and in Australia, there were options, a few options. I even would talk to their chatbot and ask, can you ship to Malaysia? And it didn't make sense. They didn't ship from US to here because it's not a high cost product. The shipping will cost way more than the product itself. And it's not a market that they were focusing on, like Malaysia, right?
Right.
So, at that time, I was like, wow, why do we not have alternatives for such a basic hygiene need for women?
Right.
So I started to then, and because I had more time, I wasn't working, just being more curious about period care products out there, what they're made of. Again, I was just really trying to educate myself because my firstborn, I have a girl. So I have a girl and two young boys now. And as I was researching a bit more about, other brands, what goes into these products, I realized actually how little I knew about my periods. And, we've all gone through school, and I grew up both in New Zealand and Malaysia, but it's the same thing. I actually didn't learn much about my periods, no matter which country I was in. And we still, especially in Asian society, there's still a lot of taboo and stigma around this topic. Right? I mean, our mothers don't really talk about it. We don't talk about it with our sisters or friends enough. So I realized that as a mother, is that, and am I going to be relying on school to teach my kids about periods? And I just don't think that's going to change, unless someone does something about it. So I took it upon myself to read a lot about periods and cycles, just menstruation overall. And honestly, I sat on wanting to, so I felt like I wanted to do something in this space. And honestly, I sat on it for about 18 months. I think was finding that courage again. I just came out of chemo. Now I have a child. I'm a bit more risk averse now than before having children. And I went into those other two startups of kind of guns a-blazing, but cowboy style. And so I was being a lot more careful and making that decision if I was going to go and to do a third business and really trying to serve this space in the menstruating community. So yeah, I sat on it for about 18 months, did quite a bit of research, spoke to different suppliers out there. And a lot of people ask me, why is it called BOBBLE? Actually, because when I was doing the research at that time, I needed to name my files. And my daughter had just started talking at that time, and she was trying to say the word bubble, and it just sounded like bubbles. So I took that word and named my files, and it just kind of stuck. So when I started the business, I decided to just continue a name. I thought it was easy enough to remember, quirky enough. Easy enough to say, quirky enough to remember. And, I thought if I had to pivot, well, it doesn't really mean anything, so I could easily pivot if I needed to as well. So that's kind of how the name came about. But yeah, it was about 18 months before I actually decided to take that, I would say both a risk, but an opportunity to go into a third business that I felt aligned a lot more with my newly found purpose and values.
Right. I find how a lot of startups or businesses starts because the founder wanted to solve a personal problem. Yeah. And then eventually you're like, hey, how come this doesn't exist? Right. And then figure out if there's a market for it. Like if I'm looking for this, someone else must be looking for this, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. And in all your research, it's interesting. I say it's a taboo. Even right now, as I was hearing you tell this story, and I'm being like very transparent. Even I'm thinking, what can I ask about this?
It's actually great that you, as a father, right, as a man, but I mean, father to a daughter,
Yes, yeah.
right, as well.
Yeah.
It's great that we're having this conversation with two genders represented here in this conversation, because again, I talked about there's a lot of taboo and stigma in this space, and I truly believe in order for us to move the needle to break through those stigmas, normalize the conversations about periods and menstrual health and well-being, it's going to be important that we involve all genders.
You're right.
And it shouldn't be just individuals or business owners, but it's got to be everyone: businesses, government, community, schools, teachers, whatever it is, right? Whoever it is. So it's got to be a collective effort in order to really start changing the way that this, very specific part of a woman's health, which is honestly like every woman more or less has gone through a period in her life.
Yeah.
But yet we don't talk about it enough. It's just so ironic. So, collectively, it's important that we have this conversation. So it's great that we're having this today. And I guess what you could ask about it, yeah, again, I also ask myself, why do we have this taboo stigma in our society? And I think even in Malaysia, we're kind of layered with even more nuances. It's not just our culture or our race, but it's things like even religion as well. And that does make it a little bit more complex because, in some cultures or religions, periods may be seen as dirty. So you shouldn't go to a place of prayer if you're having your period, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there were stories that came out like literally like a year or two ago. I mean, we're in the 2020 onwards, where there was a young Muslim girl in New York, who had to hide when she was, it was during Ramadan month, and she had to hide in her room while eating. And during her period, because you're allowed to eat during your period during Ramadan month. But she had to hide because she was so ashamed by it, and she didn't want to show her brother and her father that she felt the need to eat to help her go through very heavy period time during Ramadan. And then she got found out and shamed by the family. And I was just like, wow, that's just, I understand and I respect that there's a certain culture and maybe religious factors to it. But I feel like in this day and age, we have to shift the perspective and the narrative around what is a period, why do women and young girls have periods, right? And it serves a much higher purpose, and why it's important to have regular healthy periods. So, extending beyond that, a lot of women now are sharing a lot more for those who are unfortunately diagnosed with things like illnesses like PCOS, like PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, where or endometriosis, or endo for short, where it does impact the menstrual cycle, right? Your periods are irregular, extremely painful, etc. And honestly, these illnesses have been going on for for decades, but no one spoke about it. But only now that the conversation is starting to come out, more and more women are aware that this is not normal and seeking the help that they need. Right. So it's not just women. It's even as a boyfriend or a brother or a father, right? If you're noticing these signs with the women in your life, and if we're educated, we're all equally educated, then you can sort of recommend, hey, this is what I learned about periods. If you're experiencing really painful periods, or if it's not really regular and you're concerned, hey, you should go see a gynecologist. Right. So it's like, hey, you're not feeling well. Maybe you should go see a doctor.
Right.
Right. And we would do that with any other sort of general illnesses. And we should do the same when it comes to the topic about periods and menstruation. So there's just, I can't unpack it all here. There's so much to learn. And I truly believe that, both genders need to, or all genders need to learn about that. So how I plan to raise my children is having that conversation at home. So my sons will equally learn about this. So they're one day going to be fathers, and they're a brother, right, or boyfriend, or whatever it is. And they're going to have to, I feel like they have to learn about this. And if we can start to break that stigma at home, that's a space that we can control. We can't control what goes on in school and in social media, but we can control the narrative at home. So I think as a parent, that's a responsibility that I want to take and, raise my sons and daughter equally in that way.
What would you... I've been thinking of the question I could ask.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, very open, and it's an important conversation to have.
So as maybe I'll ask it this way, like as a father, a husband, like what do you wish I would know about this topic that you find that maybe not enough people know?
Yeah, well, first things first, be prepared that your daughter may have her period a lot earlier than you think.
Oh, okay.
So as the generations have gone by, with globalization, change in our diet, and all these sorts of biological factors, has actually changed at what age generally, not saying all, but generally, that girls will start getting their period. So in our generation, it was on average maybe around 12, 13, right? In our grandmother's time, it was 18.
What was it? Oh, wow.
Now, girls starting to get periods at 9.
Right. Okay.
They're still in primary school. And again, for us, it's like scary to think, right? Because that means that their reproductive system kicks in if you're menstruating, because you're releasing an egg from your body.
Okay.
So it's important that us as parents, we understand that could happen. We should be educated about it so we can support our daughters during that time. And one of the things that I plan to do, and I've seen happen with other parents in social media for my daughter when she has her period, is rather than position it as something scary, right? I think in my time, our mother's time, it's like, what's happening to me? Am I dying? Because the conversation was not there. How I want to change the narrative from the get-go is it's a celebration. So we want to do a period party. So when your daughter gets her first period, it's like, how do we have a little party, about that, right? Whether it's with her friends or with, close friends or with family. So we want to celebrate that she's going into that season in her life, and also showcase that we can support them. So, as a father, right? Knowing that you can go and buy pads, and it's okay. It's okay for women and men to buy condoms. It should be okay for moms and dads to buy pads for their daughters. Right. Secondly, it's try to opt for more natural or organic alternatives, because there are a million pad brands out there or period care brands out there, but there's a lot of chemicals that go into the production of these products. And because we're using these products at the most intimate part of a woman's body, and at the same time, your vulva area is also very highly absorbent. Our skin is our largest organ, but that part we're very absorbent. So again, it's over long-term periods, excuse the pun, use of pads, not saying it's going to cause cancer, but what I'm saying is that we have no idea what our bodies will absorb. So we just want to be mindful of what we're buying for our daughters when it comes to that time, and just be open to having those conversations. Like, how are you feeling? So they may be afraid to share at that young age that they're having really bad stomach cramps, right? And if they are, then we can get like a hot pillow, right? A little hot heat patch or something like that, or can have like a warm Milo or warm milk or something. They might get hungrier more during that time. So understanding the the symptoms that come with a period, or really it's just, it's very normal to experience a lot of these symptoms during that time as our body's going through so many hormonal changes. It's just showing that you understand that they're going through that, and how can I support you? What can daddy do or mommy do to make you feel a little bit better? Especially the first year, because it's quite a shock to the system. And a lot of times, and again, it's maybe our culture that we don't share.
Right.
We're afraid to share. So that's why I think before they hit the age of 9, even 8 or 9, we should start having these conversations at home and in school. My daughter is very well versed in what to expect. She's 7, right? What to expect with a period. And so if she ever starts to feel that she may get her period in the next, honestly, it's going to be the next 2 years for our daughters, potentially, to come and talk to mommy and daddy and create that safe space and that safe environment if they're wondering or they're concerned that they may be getting their period, and we will support them through that.
Oh.
Yeah. That's how I perceive it anyway. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, potentially. And that's why, like, in schools, I mean, we're working with one of the schools here where we provide free period care in schools. We had to make it available for upper primary because upper primary girls, some of them have started their periods.
Interesting.
Mm.
And then I also I was thinking about what you just said, and when my daughter experiences it, I would really hate it if she felt like she couldn't talk to me about.
Yeah.
And of course, I feel that on some natural level, she might tend to speak to her mom a little bit more because maybe she can relate directly. But if you didn't feel like she could talk to me at all, that wouldn't be so great, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And can you imagine those who are, say, single dads out there, right? I mean, it's hard enough that you're a single parent, but I think at the same time, for single dads out there, or dads who are stay-at-home dads or taking on more of an active parental role, and you have a daughter, even if you have a son, right? I think it's important that you have those conversations. We're the adults here.
Yes.
Right? We're the adult. You have to remember that.
Yes.
And so it's important that we guide them through that, and hopefully that will inspire them for their children, right? When they have children later on.
Right.
Yeah. This is where we can start to break that cycle of taboo and stigma and tiptoeing around something that happens about 450 times on average in a woman's lifetime.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's right. So I mean, it's basically a big part of a woman's life, and yet it doesn't get talked about so openly, right? It's just really weird if you think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in terms of Bobbles, what phase is the startup at right now, would you say?
Well, we've been around for almost 5 years now. So, I mean, we've focused mostly on the Malaysian market. And I'll be honest, like, we're not at the price point that we compete with a lot of the generic incumbent brands, just because we don't have the same access to resources and factories and the scale and volume. Right. Exactly. So as a humble local Malaysian startup, the first couple of years were tough. Thankfully, even though when I started this and it was just before COVID, periods don't stop for pandemics. So we started to see a demand actually in stores. So when I started this, I thought we're going to be the next Dollar Shave Club for women, right? E-commerce, online subscription. But very quickly we became actually more omni-channel, because the demand of where women needed to access period care was in pharmacies and supermarkets and things like that. So so we found ourselves moving into omni-channel quite quickly during COVID. But I would say majority of our business is still online.
Right.
We do still have some subscribers that subscribe, but I would say majority of our customers prefer to buy as and when. They're like, some are like to stockpile. Everyone's buying behavior is different. Some people with their toiletries, they like to stockpile for 3-4 months. And some a bit more reactive buyers where they kind of buy as they need, especially for those who have irregular periods. Maybe a subscription may not work for them in that regard. So, I guess 5 years in, definitely looking at opportunities of how we want to scale further. We want to provide more access, not just in a sort of direct-to-consumer channels, but also through B2B, where we want to have period care, quality, safe period care available where young girls and women work, live, learn, and play. So what I mean by that is, can it be made available in schools, right? Access to free period care in schools. Can it be made available in the workplace? Hospitality, right? Can we have free period care in our hotel rooms, on flights? there used to be the availability made on flights.
Mm.
Not anymore.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
In Malaysia.
Right.
But when I travel and I take other international airlines, I always check. So here's a tip for you guys out there. If you're traveling other airlines, I recently was on a Qatar Airways and ANA in Japan. And if you go into the restroom, some airlines do provide free pads. So there's always like a slot somewhere near the toilet. Just have a look around for it. They will provide free period care on flights. So I would like to see more of that happen, right? On more flights here in Malaysia, here in the region. Hotel rooms, right? We get a free sanitary bag, but not the pad, right? I tested it with several hotels. I would call them like, hey, do you have pads or tampons? And some hotels have it, but you have to request for it. Some hotels, I stayed at a 5-star hotel one time as a staycation with my husband, and I called and they're like, oh, it's like 8 o'clock at night. We don't have it. Actually, no one can go out and run to get it. You know, stores are closing. So again, like, I'm sorry to say, if men can get free shavers in your amenities kit in a hotel room, why can't women get free pads? Again, right? It is breaking the stigma. It is normalizing that narrative.
Right.
So, and if we have it there, made it freely available, it will delight your female guests. Again, right? Why can't we send the message that this is a very basic hygiene need?
Right.
You know what I mean? So again, it's where women and young girls work, live, learn, and play. This is what I mean by having access and more of these touch points. And that's one of the directions that we really want to focus on, other than potentially scaling into new markets as well.
Right. And, I mean, we are talking about like women's health right now, but in general, you've always been a big advocate of like, women in careers, life and all that, right? And you still work to lean in, my understanding.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, so I was part of the founding group that started Lean In back in 2014. But after having children, it was like a second job. We actually then formalized a bit more of a formal structure in Lean In after a few years. So then now I sort of retired the role, and I was leading our partnerships and sponsorships. And so now I sit on the board of advisors.
I see. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So definitely still supporting in the space, whether it's with the initiatives that Lean In has, but we have an amazing working committee, so they don't really need my advice or help. Mentoring where I can, whether it's, anyone, young people who are looking to start or build a career, women who are returning to the workforce, and I feel like, okay, I've gone through that, so I can share my experiences and help them to navigate through that time. And even now, in my day job now, I've gone into career coaching and career advising and a bit more on the professional development side too. So, and the nuances for men and women are similar. So yes, a lot of my work has been supporting women, but I would help any gender.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And are you referring to what you're doing with the Asian School of Business right now with the career bag, which I was going to ask you?
Yeah. I've gone through my own career pivot, guys. So I've gone through career acceleration and also career pivots.
Right.
So I've recently, as I mentioned before, I decided, yes, I have my business and I have BOBBLE, but I'm in a different season of my life as an entrepreneur, right? I had started BOBBLE with 1 kid. Now I have 3 children, so the risk is very different. And so I made a conscious choice to go back into the workforce at the end of 22. So that's where I joined back my first employer, and then I was made redundant. And then, so I was made redundant. This was in June 2023, so about a year plus ago. Went through the whole job search process. I think a lot of listeners may have gone through or going through the anxieties that come with that. And especially at this age, right, it's a little bit challenging. And I think because it needs to really align with your values and where you want to be in your career. And then there was an opportunity at ASB. Actually, I had a friend working there, and she was the one that recommended for me to think about joining ASB, or Asia School of Business, here in KL. So I thought, okay. So I had a chat with HR, and I'm all about saying yes to opportunities. I had a chat with HR, and it took some months to carve out a JD. I was actually offered and hired for a particular role, but I wasn't actually hired for the role that I have now. So Right now, I'm the director of our career development office. So I work with our MBA students and graduates when it comes to career coaching, professional development, as well as building out their networks with potential employers. I wasn't hired for that role initially. I was very much hired for a more of a go-to-market commercial type of role. But my CEO, after 2 weeks of joining, asked, hey, there's this position that's open. Would you be able to take this on interimly? And I was like, sure, I don't mind learning new skill sets. And I felt that I was also, I've been doing this entrepreneurship thing for a very long time. I kind of missed, I think, being able to learn in a safe and structured space. I thought this is an opportunity for me to learn and upskill myself. So I did that interimly. So I was double hatting for about 2-3 months. And then in April earlier this year, I was asked if I wanted to take on the role full time and given a letter of offer for that. And I thought, well, I really love what I do, working with people and really seeing their growth and their transformation. And if I can support in that, like it was some very meaningful work for me. So I've gone into it full time. So yeah, I'm multi-hatting in my life.
Yeah, like career right now. Tell us how do you manage so many moving pieces?
Yeah, it's hard. I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned after chemo is that time is such a finite resource. We talked about this time and obviously resources, but time for me is such a finite resource. So how do I manage it? I do not have a magic playbook and how to do it. I think everyone's circumstance is different at home, how many kids you have, the needs that you require in life, so on and so forth, right? So I would say that I'm still figuring it out this season in my life, juggling between everything. I do pickups and drop-offs as well. So I think the first thing that I've tried to do this past 8 months, navigating in this new season of my life, is building an ecosystem. I'm in a bit of a routine. I look at my resources I have. I've got my 2 parents that live opposite me, and I made a conscious choice many years ago to live opposite my parents. So I knew I could utilize that support one day.
Right.
Because unfortunately, my in-laws, they don't stay here in Malaysia. So it's only really my parents. So it's an ecosystem that I've built between my husband and my parents on who does drop-offs and who has which days on pickups, right? So we have those routines. I had to employ a helper during chemo. So I've had that same helper until today, and she's been an amazing anchor in my life, which has enabled me to go back to work. And it's just, you should see my calendar. It's colorful.
Yeah.
Time management. Yeah, color coding everything. Share calendars with my team. Share calendars with my husband. My team can see I've blocked school pickups in my work calendar. So my team knows and my students know that I work with, I cannot have career coaching sessions or meetings during that time. So I'm being very transparent, and I communicate very well with my team on what's going on at home and within my ecosystem. My team at BOBBLE as well. So I think strong communication, being transparent in my movements and what my needs are, and everyone's very understanding, has really helped me to manage my day-to-day.
Right. But it sounds like you're sort of like I don't know if you have to work long hours, but I can't imagine you not
No,
like working long hours.
guys, there's no such thing as 9 to 5. I mean, you want your cake and you want to eat it and eat most of the cake. I won't say you'll get your cake all at the same time. Again, it's the different seasons of your life, right? So, I mean, right now for me, because I've made the conscious decision to go back into the workforce, I want to do well in my job. I want to perform, right? I want to be a great manager. I want to be a great coach. I want to serve my customers in BOBBLE. I want to be the best mother I can be for my children. Yes, at times I face imposter syndrome, and I do not hide behind that. Yes, all the time I feel mum guilt. Unfortunately, I feel that my husband is sort of near the bottom of that list, but we're also talking about it and trying to have those conversations where we're trying to carve out time where we can to invest in our relationship and our marriage. So that then requires that I have to work long hours. So yes, I have flexibility in my day. But once the kids go to bed, so the 6 to 9 p.m. is sacred time, and everyone knows it's sacred time for the kids. It's the eating, the bathing, the bedtime routines, putting them to sleep and all that. But after that, I do generally jump back to work. But I also have been trying to be more conscious and telling myself that I have to select which days that I do extra work. So for me, it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays that I allow myself to do the extra work. And I'm a bit of I burn the midnight oil. Sometimes I work better at night. That's kind of my thing because it's quiet, no kids,
Right.
no team members, less WhatsApp messages, so I can really focus on getting through the administrative stuff. And then typically Wednesdays are like my time to watch my binge watching shows, my guilty pleasures. That was last night. And Fridays usually I would serve for time with family, date night with husband, that kind of thing with friends and things like that. So I try to also make sure that I'm putting in the extra hours that I need to, but also carving out time where I need to for my own mental health.
Right. It's interesting that that everything is structured and planned. Like you have days where I'm gonna work extra these days.
Yeah.
This is my binge watching day. And
Yeah.
this is my social day, husband day.
This is only at 80% of the time.
Right.
So it's good to have a plan, but sometimes curveballs are thrown and it doesn't always go to plan. But at least for me, at least I roughly have a structure that my husband is aware of and aligned with, and my kids as well.
Yeah.
Even my kids need to know Fridays is mommy and daddy's date night.
Right.
So let us go willingly. So again, it's having that communication at home, and of course that helps me to guide me through my week, so I'm less chaotic and stressed, because stress is something I've really consciously tried to manage since chemo, because stress is a massive, as we all know, right? Stress is a killer, right? It does trigger a lot of health and ailment issues, right?
Do you pay attention?
I do.
Right.
And so I'm trying to be conscious if my stress levels are, you can feel it. It's pushing at that edge. And so for me, that's why I need to try and be as organized as possible, but allowing, that 20% of things are not going to work out, and I have to accept that. And that's something I've had to work on, is being adaptable when things don't work out or not going to plan. So it takes away that mental load, especially for women who are trying to build their careers, or even stay-at-home moms, right? I mean, trying to raise a family. You're having constant mental load. I mean, we probably think 10,000 thoughts in like 10 minutes or something for women. And so having a bit of a plan, having a bit of a structured week, my daily to-dos, my weekly to-dos, whatever it is, helps to take off at least or relieve some of the mental load. So I'm more proactive in how I am having my day-to-day than being reacted to it. Yeah.
Right. And I love this, because I always believe that, especially if someone is juggling a lot of things at the same time, you have to put things on your calendar, even personal stuff, right? So if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to get done. Right, like even something like date night, just have it there, so you know that, and it's not that, like you said, like maybe it happens 80% of the time, maybe 60%, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The fact that it's there
Exactly.
means that it will, it will happen, right?
Absolutely. Or at least most of the time. I've tried to carve out gym. So I put gym in my calendar to try to treat it like a meeting.
Right.
So I was consistent first half of this year, less so recently, but I put it there. It's almost like a reminder, and it's in a way trying to hold myself accountable, like, hey, this is the time that you've carved out for the gym, which is usually I used to try and do mornings, but it's such a mad rush getting the kids to school and try to go to the office. I tend not to, so I try to do it at the 5 to 6 p.m. just before dinner, so I can meet the 6 o'clock dinner time. And the gym can be just downstairs in my condo, right? Just we'll go for a walk, or I'm quite lucky, very blessed that at my workplace, we have at ASB, we have a gym there, so I could use the gym there too. So it saves on time and money, and getting to the gym. So yeah, I think even carving that out, even though I haven't actually done it every time, but it's carved in my calendar, and it's part of that routine that I'm trying to build right now. Yeah.
And you talked about stress management earlier. Do you have any specific things you do or techniques you use to manage that?
I think the first thing, definitely I've fully figured it out, because I think I've been better at not getting myself to the point that I'm so stressed.
Right.
But if I do find myself feeling that stress, I pause.
Right.
So I just take a moment or 5 minutes or whatever it is to just pause. And for everyone and how they manage it, it could be, you want to flick on your social media. That's one way to sort of have a bit of escapism and zone out. For me, I'm less of a doom scroller. For me, I just honestly like to just pause and not do anything. I could be sitting in my chair in the office or just at home and just honestly zoning out.
Right. Just have a moment of like quiet time.
Exactly.
Right.
So one thing I used to do a little bit is just being like thinking about my breathing, and we'll talk about breathing techniques and all that. I mean, I'm not a yogi. I'm not an avid meditator or guru. I just don't function that way.
Right.
So I'm not saying that you have to do like full on 5-minute breathing exercise, but for me, I'm just sort of being mindful of just breathing in that moment. Something I do with my children, and I practice a little bit of breathing with my children, and it helps to calm them down. So I feel like I shouldn't be a hypocrite. I should do it myself.
Right.
So with the children, with kids, 2 to 5, they will have these meltdowns. And what I've done with my eldest two, who've gone through this age range, is we go through a breathing exercise. So what we do, and what I do with myself sometimes, we talk about you smell the roses or smell the daisies or smell the flowers or breathe in the flowers, hold your breath for 3 seconds, and then blow out the candles.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you go, smell the flowers, hold your breath 3 seconds, okay, blow out the candles. And that's the fun part for the kids. And you just do like a gentle breathe out. And usually I do that 3 rounds with my kids, and it calms their meltdowns and tantrums down.
Right.
So I try to do that with myself as well. If I'm like feeling I'm just pushed to that edge, I just pause, just be mindful of my breathing a little bit, and I can practice the smell the flower, blow out the candle thing if I choose to in that moment.
Right. And you said that and what you really want to do is avoid even getting to that moment, right? So is that, and how do you do that specifically? Is it just about how you talk to yourself about don't be stressed, Malisse? Like
It's easier said than done. Yeah, no. Well, let me reflect on that a little bit. Again, I think just because of the things I've gone through in life, right? And the saying life is short, but it's so damn true. I had the second chance in life. And so now I have been more, again, me being in the season of life where I have kids and work and everything, I'm being more selective and conscious of where I'm spending my time and my energy. So that's why in the choice of career and the choice of role and, the choice of my business, I had to really align with the values that I have now after going through chemo and after becoming a parent. So that when I am spending my time on certain things, whatever challenges that come out of it, actually I found it's less stressful. I accept that it's part of that learning journey. Spending my time on, even in sort of personal time, right? I don't see friends as much. I don't have as much time, but I also, there are certain friends I do spend my time with because it fills my cup. And that's where I want to spend my energies, with certain people that I'm able to connect with and have conversations that really align with me and my needs at that time. So because I feel that I've been selective in where I'm spending my time, and at the same time in the back of my mind that I know that, we all have one life to live, and we all don't know when that day is for us. It's kind of like the don't sweat the small stuff a little bit. And I learned it from my husband, and he's like a super chill guy. He's the yin to my yang, I guess. We're very opposite. He's always the calmest person in the room, no matter how stressed or how challenging I feel. I sort of am in whatever situation. He's like the most calm person. And he doesn't say much, but it's just this calm energy. And so I felt that, after going through that and being more selective on where I choose to spend my energy, whatever happens is actually, it's not the end of the world. No one, that sounds pretty sort of dark, but I'm like, in that moment, like, no one's hurt, no one's dying. It is a challenge, and it's part of the journey. What can I do about it? What can I grow from it, right? What can I learn about it? How can I problem solve this? If I don't know how, who can I ask for help?
right.
And so I think it's just, going through those motions, and sometimes, like, wow, I can't hit the target, right? But have I done my level best? And if I know in myself that I've done my level best, and we couldn't hit target because there's other factors sometimes, right, that attribute to that, then this is what I explain this, to my team or to my management, to my investors or whatever that is. And I think as long as they know you've done your best, right, that's they accept that, and they understand that, and they can support, right? And so that's something that we tell our children.
Right.
It's not striving for perfection, but it's striving for progress.
Progress.
Right.
Yes.
And as long as you do your best in school, that's all we can ask for. And I think people around me know that that's me. And so, yeah, because I think in the past I used to be so anxious and stressed about, oh, I can't do this. What if I can't hit target? Because I was in a very sales-driven role for most of my career. That was extremely stressful.
Right.
Hitting monthly revenue targets, not just as an individual. I had an entire office, 6 targets to take care of, right? And it was really hard, really stressful. And so now I sort of know that I've done my best and I hit target, great. And if I don't, then again, no one's dying, no one's, it's not the end of the world, right? But I have to explain this, of course, and everyone understands because they know that that's the value that I can bring is I've done my best.
Right. And I guess a lot of it is like putting things in perspective, right?
Yeah, perspective. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
'Cause when
absolutely.
you've been through such a big life-changing moment, like the things don't look so, it doesn't look like such a huge problem anymore. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, I guess it's shifting the perspective, I think, in that moment. Obviously not dismissing, the problem or the value or whatever it is, but at the same time, I think it's you know yourself best. If you've done your best or try to figure it out. And also not being afraid to ask for help when you need to as well, in difficult times.
And now looking back, at your younger self, I won't say like maybe at the moment that you were going through this health crisis, if you like what would you say? What would you say to her if you were to speak to a younger self and to give her some advice?
I think, well, that's always a hard one when you reflect back and try to advise your younger self. Um, I think one thing I would tell myself is to give myself grace. I think a lot of times we can be very hard on ourselves, especially when we want to strive to be the best at whatever we decide to do in our lives. I want to be the best mother. I want to be, very successful in my business, or I want to be the best leader and perform really well in my company, whatever that is, right? And sometimes, for those people who are very ambitious and have very high standards of themselves, we don't give ourselves enough grace. And it's easy to sort of self-blame or self-sabotage sometimes. So I think that's who I was a little bit in my younger self. I just put so much pressure and expectation on myself, and no one's doing that. It's me doing it to myself. So I think what I would tell my younger self, whether it's a new mother, or a mother-to-be, or growing my career or growing my business, is to allow myself a little bit more grace. And just be more forgiving to myself because, we can be hard on ourselves a lot of the time. Yeah, and that everything's going to be okay.
Right. Grace, I love that. Like, be forgiving to yourself. I think one of the things over time people need to realize is that we're all human. We all have strengths and weaknesses. You're gonna make mistakes, especially if you're gonna try really hard, right? And it's good to kind of, be forgiving to yourself, and sometimes maybe even laugh at your own weaknesses if you like, like don't take it too heavily. No one's expected to do everything in an amazing way. I think self-awareness is a big part.
Absolutely. I think it's a really important human skill. I think both in careers and in life to have. No one's perfect, but if we're aware, we reflect and they're very aware, right? Where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, etc. I think it would just help us to navigate life in a more fair way for ourselves, right? Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. It's very important. And actually, there was a study done on that where self-awareness is one of the most important skills, human skills to have globally.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually, there was a comparison done between globally and Asia, and it was #1 in Asia. So I think it's lacking generally. I think in Asian context, maybe because we've been we've been told what to do a lot of the time, but in school, maybe at home, whatever it is, like kind of told a little bit more. So it suppresses, that skill to practice being more self-aware. That's perhaps how I perceive it. I'm very thankful that I grew up in a household where we're very vocal. My parents created a very safe space for us to be very honest and very vocal. And partly I think it was influenced by growing up in the West, in New Zealand, where that's the culture there. So when I came back to Malaysia, I could feel that there was a little bit of a difference in the culture whether it's socially and maybe in the workplace as well. And I always encourage my team to speak up, right? I'd rather people speak up and share than suppress what they're really thinking and feeling, or not allowing them the space to dig into that self-awareness for themselves.
Yes. I think the team would have heard me speak about this before. Like even for myself, I would tell people that I'm still learning how to be a CEO of this kind of company. I've never done it before, right?
Yeah, yes.
It's my first time, and sometimes even when I'm not even talking about being self-critical, which maybe I also do a little bit too much. But if someone would walk up to me and say, you know what, Derek, I think you messed this part up. I think what I'm trying to learn to do is like sort of say, you're right, I did, right?
Yeah.
And now let's figure out how do we fix this? How do we take this forward? So, and then in this, I think, and I love what you talked about being self-forgiving and grace, and because it actually helps people kind of go through life a little bit better, maybe, and also maybe perhaps give them permission to try and not be too hard on themselves if they don't succeed, right?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone's version of success is different. So maybe that's something you want to ask yourself, right? Like, what matters to you? What are your values? And what does your version of success look like? But does it align with that? It shouldn't be about what you think others should perceive of you, or to please, what you would like to be perceived at in society, but really does it align with you and your values? So I think that's really important. And, perhaps just like you're saying, leading a little bit of a happier life. Right? Yeah.
So what's next for you? And whether it's for you personally in BOBBLE and at the Asia School of Business.
Yeah. Firstly, no more children.
No.
No more children. I mean, I have 3 between the ages of 1 and 7, so it's a handful now. But in terms of my career, I think from starting off with BOBBLE, in terms of the business aspect, there are some things in our roadmap that we're thinking of, and me as a business owner, also thinking about what's the next strategy and our next move, and really deciding how we want to take this to the next level, and really relooking and reassessing. I think it's good to relook and reassess your business model from time to time.
Right.
So we're sort of at that phase now, and just ensuring, are we able to serve our customers and our community in the right way, both through offering safer and sustainable period care, but also coupled and supported by just better education and awareness in that space. So that's really, truly what BOBBLE is about. We're very purpose-led in that. And 5 years later, we're still very much anchored in how we drive our business in that way. And then with ASB, busy times. We have new batch of students come in. So, yeah, I guess shameless plug, if anyone is looking to do their MBA or executive MBA, they could think about ASB and reach out to us. We're sort of a very bespoke approach in terms of how we deliver our ASB programs and the learning experience for our students. But yeah, I think with my career, I am embracing the little bit of a pivot into academia, which is not something I've done before. In a way, a lot of my skills in past roles in sales, BD, partnerships, those sorts of things is very and then the network that I've built over the last 17 years of working on a regional level is actually very transferable into my role, but also the value that I can offer for my students, but also others who are going through a early stage startup journey as well. So I do take a lot of pride in spending time and intentionally spending time with those who need that mentoring or that coaching. So yeah, I'm really embracing the pivot and the learning curve that's ahead of me. I definitely have a lot to learn. So I think being humble is really important, and it's a value that I hold truly to myself, that I need to always be humble, and I learn a lot from my team that I've inherited at ASB. I'd like to, maybe on a personal level, get my coaching certification. So it's something that I aspire to do, get a coaching certification, and who knows, this could be a whole other skill set and personal revenue stream later on, perhaps, if I go into executive coaching, something like that. Yeah, so I think in terms of my career, although I'm kind of midway, but I still feel there's just so much for me to do, so much for me to learn, so much more impact that I can pay forward to, you know, young people or anyone in any stage of their career. But obviously I wouldn't be able to advise those who are much more my senior, but I think I'm happy to support and still give back to the community in that way. And yeah, there's just so much to do, and hopefully I can lead by example to my kids. I think that's the most important thing, and kind of what Mummy has done, and hopefully they could be inspired by that.
Amazing. Right. I think that's a really great bar to look. You want to live a life that your kids will be proud of, right? When they look at you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. We're gonna wrap up this chat with 3 quick rapid fire questions. I'm just gonna read off the piece of paper so I get it exactly right.
Okay. Okay.
First question. What's a recent purchase under 1,000 ringgit that you believe has been life-changing for you?
Yeah, life-changing. That's hard. As moms, we don't spend on ourselves much anymore. It goes to our kids. But one recent purchase that I had been putting off for a really long time is actually investing in a good pair of shoes. So I specifically wanted to buy for a very long time, kind of those dress sneakers. So I got like a Puma ones. You can wear with jeans, but it looks nice, right? It's not like your sports shoes, but I don't know what you call them, like kind of
Dress sneakers, right?
Is that what you call them? So you can wear them with, I can wear it with a skirt or jeans or shorts or whatever.
Right.
The reason is because I'm either in heels a lot at work, or I'm in slippers in the weekend. And so I found that when I'm carrying my kids so much, I can feel my lower back is not as strong as it used to be. So for out with the kids in the weekend, rather than wearing slippers, I felt like I needed just better sole support. So I invested in a good pair of but also nice looking dress sneakers for myself.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I say I guess life-changing, well, helping to save my back, hopefully.
Right. And it's comfortable and you walk easier too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. What's a habit or routine that's been most critical to your success?
I have 3 alarms in the morning because I have to wake up at 5:45. So
What time does it start?
5:30.
5:30, right?
5:30, 5:35, 5:45. No, so I mean, now that I have to wake up so early to send the kids to school, that's actually been a great way to force me to wake up. So I've gained a little bit more time in my day, and we're already feeling that time is so tight. So that routine of actually sending the kids to school has helped me to start my day earlier. And before 9, I'm in the office. Before 9, I've already gotten through some work. And so I already feel a sense of achievement by the time it's 9 a.m. So that, and I think, as I mentioned before, my calendar really helps just to, again, put everything out there on paper and planning ahead as much as possible so that I'm more proactive when I get into every week. And also practicing with my husband. So we would catch up on the weekend and kind of have an outlook. Okay, what's happening in the week? So we decide who's sending on which days, who's picking up. Okay, pickups we've set, but who sends on which days, because it depends on my meetings. And even meal planning as well. Sometimes it helps to take that mental load off. And also I will know, okay, husband has his time out with his friends, and I might say, okay, this is my time out, or this is date night. So planning ahead in the week, and because it changes every week, it does help. So we start off the week right, but also with a little bit of a direction on where everyone is and everyone's movements are.
Right. Okay. And last question. If you created a video and that you posted online on social media, and for some reason this video went viral, right? What message would you like this video to carry?
Oh, wow. I would say, and maybe it could be opposite of my normal character. I want it to be something really funny, because I think it's important for us to laugh. And I think just generally, we don't spend enough time laughing. We focus so much on just the day-to-days. We get lost in the routine and the noise of everything, the chaos at home, whatever it is. And if I really think back, it's like, I mean, whoever can think back, when was the last time you had a really good laugh? Right? At the same time, wouldn't we wish we could laugh like that more often?
Yeah.
So if that video can showcase that message, and really, I think if we laugh more, it's just so good for us. It's so good for the soul. Almost tear kind of like laughter. It's been a long time, and but every time after you laugh, you feel so much better. That's just a natural endorphin in itself. So if I could put out a video, I'm not a funny person naturally, but if I could put out a video that has a key message, it's really about how can we laugh more about laughter. Yeah.
I love that. And that's a great way to sort of wrap this out, right? So it's like, we're all busy chasing things. We're all busy living up to our responsibilities and even expectations. But in some sense, don't forget to laugh more, right?
Laugh. Yeah.
Right? Laugh more, smile, be happy,
Absolutely.
experience the moment, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to us having a good laugh
Right.
next time there.
Thank you so much, Malisse,
Thank
for
you,
sharing your personal story.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Absolutely, we will. Alrighty. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to the end of the episode. If you like this, follow us or hit the subscribe button. It will help us bring on more amazing guests and makes the whole show better for you. So thanks again and see you in the next one.